everybody, welcome to my channel. If you're new, I'm Lou the Rocker Witch, and welcome back those of you who, have been here, and yeah, welcome back. I thought that maybe I would talk about the rocker part of my name because I talk a lot on here about things like tarot and astrology and witchcraft and things, but I don't talk a ton about music. And I thought maybe I should. Maybe I should talk about that. So this is just going to be a rambling little video of me talking about like why I kind of picked that name, and also what that means to me and how I got into things and all of that. So you'll notice sometimes like I film downstairs, I have like posters and things behind me. Today I'm upstairs in my bedroom. We've got some of the guitars back here. So music's a big part of my life, even though I don't really talk a whole lot about it on this channel. And if you like this, maybe that'll change. But I have been like a huge fan of like 80s, like hard rock and heavy metal since I was young. And this is going to age me, so it's going to, show you what era I'm from, but that's okay. So I really started getting into like rock and metal, I think like when I started to get towards being a teenager, because I was sort of raised like my parents aren't, they're not big music people. It's not that we didn't have any music in our house, but that's just not their thing. Like they're more sports type people. It's just not the huge thing. We did have like some records in our house, but it was mostly like stuff that my uncle had, and it was like this collection of stuff from like the 70s and the late 60s. It was very like Peter, Paul, and Mary. We had Simon and Garfunkel. What else was in there? There was like Anne Marie, Buffy St. Marie, things like that, right? And so, like, not a whole lot of rock and roll. I think the coolest album they had was like the Beatles' Rubber Soul, which I did enjoy as a child putting that on. But they just weren't like huge music people, and they listened more to like talk radio. When they did listen to music, it was like sometimes it was like country music, or it was just like very like soft pop side of stuff. So not a whole lot of rock and roll in my household, that's for sure. When I was a child, also like my parents are religious, and so you got to remember like in the 80s there was the whole satanic panic, and there were a lot of people who were very worried about heavy metal and thinking it was like satanic and the devil, and it was going to lead to all sorts of terrible things. And so it was just like not something that was really, I think like my parents were really on their radar, or it's just not something that they were like into like at all. I do remember when I was younger hearing some sort of rock music. I remember somebody brought Queen to school, like they brought like a cassette or something, and I remember loving Another One Bites the Dust. And then as I got older, we started to like listen to the radio a little bit more. Me and my older brother, who's only like a year and a half or so older than me, so we're around the same age. And we would, I remember, hearing more sort of like modern rock at that point. This would be probably like grade 3 and 4, like 8 or 9 years old. And I really like enjoyed like a lot of it, but I especially enjoyed there's like I really liked Van Halen's 1984 when it came out. And I remember when I was in like grade 4, so this is like 1984. So I remember for some reason the teacher was just asking us, like going around the room. She asked us like who our favorite like music like artist or group was, and half the class said Michael Jackson because Thriller came out and everybody was like Thriller is the best thing ever. And the other half said Culture Club because that was huge too, and I said Van Halen. So I was already starting to get into it at that point. I really loved the song Panama, loved that song. Also, I remember Judas Priest, Another Thing Coming. And I mean, I didn't know it was Judas Priest. I just liked that song when it came on the radio. And what most people don't realize these days is like heavy metal hard rock, they did not play during the day. Like they would play it later at night. Like it wasn't easy to hear that stuff on the radio. Like it wasn't like they played it all the time. It's not like now where like nobody cares and it was like it's just like normal background music now. It was like no, that stuff gets played at night. So when I did hear those songs, I would be like, yeah, that song's awesome. We also really loved, this will also date me as well. In Canada, we had this show on CBC called Video Hits, and it was a half-hour show, and it was like I think 5 to 5:30, and they would play like 5 videos. And I try to explain this to like my kids that I couldn't just like pull up a video whenever I wanted on like the internet. I had to like wait to see if they were going to play one of my favorite videos like on the TV after school, because there was only 5 videos going to be played, and a certain amount of it had to be Canadian content, right? So, for my fellow Canadians, you know what I'm talking about. And so, you hardly ever saw like the music that you liked, right? But we really liked when Twisted Sister came out with I Want to Rock and We're Not Going to Take It. Some parents were like horrified by these videos. I mean, it's super funny now that anybody took it seriously, because as kids, we knew these videos were jokes, right? Like we knew that they were funny. We didn't take it seriously, but some parents got pretty upset about it. So anyway, like I wasn't, again, like I listened to like all sorts of, kind of music like pop and stuff when I was younger. And then I started to get kind of more into the rock thing. And I remember when I was, I think it was like grade 5 or 6 or something, there was a girl in my class who had like a Circus magazine. And for those of you that don't know, Circus was a heavy metal magazine. And a friend of mine had a Circus magazine. I think it had like Motley Crue on it or something. And the teacher took it away, and she was telling our class about like how this music's really bad and we shouldn't listen to it. It's awful and all this stuff. So I remember that. And then later on, I would like, babysit. Like I started babysitting when I was about 12, which sounds. I think nowadays people think that's too young, but back in the 80s, that was totally normal. And again, my parents were like religious. It's not like they didn't let us watch anything, but they were kind of strict about what we watched and what we listened to and stuff. And when I go babysitting, I could kind of watch what I want. Now, mind you, back in the day, living in rural Canada, there were not a lot of TV channels. There was like 3 channels to choose from, right? So not a lot of variety going on. But if I was babysitting on a Friday night, there was a show called Good Rockin' Tonight, and it had videos on it. And it was late at night, and if I was babysitting, I would watch it, right? And I remember one time, I think this is like the summer, I think it's like June 1987, they had a Good Rockin' Tonight where it was all metal, like it was all metal and hard rock. And they were playing like Def Leppard and Whitesnake and Bon Jovi. And I mean, people don't think Bon Jovi's heavy metal now, but back then the definition of heavy metal was a little looser, we'll say. It was a little looser back in the day, right? Molly Crew, and I was like, this music is amazing. What are people talking about? This is like awesome. Like, I was like, this is the stuff people told me to stay away from. Like, this is amazing. Like, why would I stay away from this? This is awesome. This music is so great. So I really started to get into it. Like, I started to, like try to like get some cassettes and stuff. And I would like look at magazines. And I remember in like this magazine, they had this little article about this new up and coming band from LA called Guns N' Roses. And at the time they had like just released Appetite for Destruction. And I don't know, like those of you who are younger may remember this. When Appetite for Destruction first came out, it was not a hit. There was like a bunch of kids like we knew about it, but it did not take off till like 88 when Sweet Child of Mine came out. It was like under the radar for a long time. And so I remember like hearing about this, and I remember like looking at the band and being like, oh, that guy's really cute or whatever. Like I just remember seeing about the band, right? And seeing a picture of Axel and thinking he was like really hot, right? So then a friend of mine, like I think it was like grade 8, because yeah, I went to grade 8. And what we used to do back in the 80s is you could like copy tapes onto other tapes. Like if you had the Ghetto Blaster that had like it had like the 2 things for the cassette tapes, you could record one tape onto another. And a trick you would do, because they would have like a little square in the top that would kind of try to prevent you from like taping over something. You could even like tape it onto like another, like a tape that's already been taped on by putting like tape over it. So somebody took like, I think it was like a Bryan Adams tape, and they put the tape over the top so you could record on it. And they recorded one side was Guns N' Roses and the other side was Faster Pussycat. And then they like gave it to me, and they're like, oh, like I record these bands because I know you like this kind of music. Let me know what you think of it, right? And so I listened. I was like, oh my God, like I was like floored when I heard this. They were like, do not let your parents listen to this, right? Because it was swearing in it. And I was like, oh my God, like this music's amazing, but also like really bad. Like I'm going to get in so much trouble if I listen to this, right? But I really enjoyed it. Like I really liked it. I thought it was like great. I was like, what am I hearing? This is amazing, right? So then a couple of like months later, like probably October, November, around there, I was babysitting, and again, watching the late night videos. There was like another show too that had some videos on it as well, sometimes on Thursday nights, I think it was. Anyway, they played Welcome to the Jungle. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, this band, like the band where I was like, oh, this guy's really cute. And this music, this is the same thing. Because when I got the cassette, there's no picture, like it was recorded onto another cassette. There's no picture, there's no lyrics, like it's not like now where you can just look stuff up, right? So I was like, oh my God, like it blew my mind. I was like, this is amazing. And I tell people, oh, and then it changed my life forever. Cause like after that, I was like, Guns N' Roses is like the best thing ever. And this was before they got like super big. And then of course they blew up, right? Like there was like Sweet Child of Mine later in '88, and there was Paradise City, and they just kind of blew up and they became like really, really huge. Um, and like I just started really like getting into like especially like a lot of the LA music at first, like like obviously Motley Crue, and then there was like LA Guns, and just the whole kind of glam scene. And I branched out from there later on. When I got older, I started listening to like Metallica and Megadeth and stuff. I've never really gone for like this super hard stuff. Like I'm not a huge Slayer fan. Like I appreciate them. Appreciate them for sure. And I've been to a Slayer show and it was good, but it's just not my thing. Like it gets to a point where, where if it's too fast or it's too Cookie Monster type voice, it's just like I'm like, okay, I need a melody, right? I need a melody. The other thing too is I started getting into sort of the more, I guess, classic bands. Like I started getting into like Judas Priest and Iron Maiden, and now they're like some of my like favorite bands. I like AC/DC, all that kind of stuff, like just all of the kind of classic stuff. Now, there's a whole other story with like my parents were not happy with me getting into this kind of music, and they would ban it. They threw music away, they threw posters away because it was like the devil, right? And that's like, I think that's a story for another day. I think that's another, if people want to hear that story. But the thing was like, I really love that music, and no matter how many times people told me it was the devil, I just like kept listening to it because I really like it, right? And then when I got older, I moved away and stuff. I got a guitar. Actually, my parents did get me an acoustic guitar when I was 16, so that was really cool. And I did learn a little bit there. And then when I was older, I got an electric guitar. Actually, first electric guitar I got is the red guitar there, the Ibanez there. I got that when I was, how old was I? I think I was 20 when I got that one. So anyway, that's the first electric guitar that I got. So she's important to me. So, and then I started to like learn a bit more. And again, it's not like now. Like I tell the kids they're so lucky because you can go online, you can find all these tutorials. It's amazing. I did not have that. I did not have a guitar teacher. I had to like get a guitar book and like figure it out for myself, Or I would play with other people and they would like show me what chords they were doing and I'd be like, okay, and then I'd repeat it. And that's kind of how I learned things. And I just, like started playing like in a band with like some friends and stuff. And then later on, I joined a band with some friends. We were like, this is in the 90s. So it was like a gothic kind of metal band. And we played around the city and we played at like the goth bar and stuff. And that was like so much fun. The band's name was Exalted. And it was a lot of fun. And I mean, I think we were terrible, but we enjoyed ourselves and it was fun to like make noise. We even made like a little demo and stuff, went to the recording studio, and that was great. And again, that's a whole other story for another day, but basically it's been a big part of my life and it's something that I really love and I love listening to. And I still, I listen to all of that old stuff from like the 80s and stuff. And maybe that's just a product of the time that I grew up in, but I really love all of that stuff. And I play, like right now, I'm playing in kind of a gothic dark wave type band. We do have like a gig coming up soon. It's my first gig since the pandemic, so I'm very nervous about it, but I'm sure I've lived through other gigs. I'm always nervous about every single one. So I'm sure I will get through it just fine. But I enjoy doing that. I do like, like I listen to, especially like because I'm involved in both like, the goth and kind of the metal scene, especially when I was younger. I would go to like a dance to like, goth industrial type music at the bar and stuff. So I am familiar with that as well. So playing that right now. But yeah, I just really love that kind of music. And You'll see why I kind of picked the name the Rocker Witch is because you will see so many things in sort of the witchy pagan sphere where people are like, I'm a sea witch, or I'm a cottage witch, or I'm a hearth witch, or I'm a folk witch, or whatever. And that's all fine, that's cool. I don't really fit into any of those things, that's for sure. And so I was like, you know what? Like, I am somebody who likes heavy metal and hard rock. So I'm just going to call myself the Rocker Witch because that's what I like. And you'll always see, like, I'm always wearing, actually, the way it's cut off, but I'm wearing, let's see if I can lift up. There we go. I've got Slash and Axel on my t shirt because I love them. And you'll always see like posters and stuff in the background, and it's just part of my life. So that's kind of the story of why I'm called that, and a little bit of like the origin story of like how I got here. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you want to hear more stories about it. What are your favorite 80s metal and hard rock bands, if you like them, or if you don't, that's fine too. Maybe, leave a comment as well, like what your favorite stuff is, from back in the 80s. And let me know if you also grew up with like minimal television and radio as well. Dude, because not like it's just not like today. I try to explain this all the time to kids. It's just not like today. It was just a different world, and we just didn't have the variety that they have now. So anyway, let me know what your thoughts are. I would love to hear it. If you are interested in coming over and taking a look at my Patreon, I would really appreciate that. Right now, we are working with the Green Man for the month of June. That's the Green Man there with the theme of nature. For the month of June on the Coven level, I do weekly also astrology and taroscopes if you're interested in that. I do private monthly readings. So I have a level for that as well. And we're also learning about tarot and astrology. So if you want to check that out. And then as well, if you want a reading from me, right now I have a life balance reading that's new and is at an introductory price on my Etsy shop if you're interested in that. But yes, shameless plugs out of the way. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. And yeah, thank you very much for being here. And as always, I got to end it with this: peace and love.